So, lastly, for this panel, please welcome Jon Noyer, our Deputy Chief here at the Brooktrails Fire Department. And Jon, over to you, my friend. Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. This presence is pretty awesome. I've been to a few meetings where it's been significantly the other side where it's been 2 or 3. So again, I thank you. I'd also like to thank Brian and Keith for organizing this event. I think that there's a lot of good information that I think that will and needs to come from this. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues to the left for their hard work and support as well. A little bit about myself. I've been in the fire service for 34 years. 17 of those have been here in Brooktrails. 10 of those years as a chief officer, battalion chief and deputy chief. I spent 15 years on ambulance in the metropolitan area, 4 years with CAL FIRE in the command center. I was assigned to the Incident Command Team 4 for 1 year, and I did work 1 season at North Ops. So I'm pretty well versed in everything they've already discussed. Our department, we have 2 full-time employees, myself and Chief Daryl Shepner, who's the fire chief, and we have 2 seasonal firefighters that are brought on during fire season, and 20 volunteers who give their heart and soul to protect this community. So as your local fire department, we're charged with responding to medical aids, structure fires, vehicle accidents, vehicle fires, power lines down, occasional request for a cat stuck in a tree, a deer on my property. We're the catch-all. Luckily for these gentlemen, their agencies are pretty well defined. For us, we're catch-all of the community, which we absolutely love doing. No complaints there, but at times we have to kind of spell out the responsibilities of who's responsible for what, and I think they've done a very good job of explaining that. So with that being said, our mission is to suppress fires when they occur, regardless of the type. If it's a vegetation fire in Brooktrails or surrounding areas, we will be typically the first agency at scene. We will start the process of mitigating and suppressing the fire. If it comes to evacuations or notifications, we'll start that process. But once the agency CAL FIRE responds, we turn over to them and then we support their mission. Abatement is a real issue with Brooktrails. We do send out over 1,000 grass notices every year. It's a reoccurring process. Happens every year, 1,000 plus. Wooded parcels, we try to target at least 250 a year, but that is something the board has taken on back in the, I believe, early 90s, because there is no statute with CAL FIRE in the state responsibility area that has to be done. The only thing that the statute says is that defensible space has to occur, and that is 4291 from CAL FIRE that mandates that all structures will be, defensible space will be put in place. That means clearing around your house, limbing up your trees, and that sort of thing. We have supported that mission for the last 20 plus years. In addition to doing that, we've tried to abate the vacant parcels that reside within Brooktrails. So that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of funding, and we will continue to do so until we're told otherwise. With that being said, vegetation management of the Greenbelt. I brought a map that shows, since the early 90s, the areas highlighted in green are all Greenbelt properties that have been treated under grant funding. Grants are not free. They grant you the money. Sometimes there's a cost share. Sometimes there's in-kind services that requires a lot of staff time. There was a time when Chief Shepner was the sole district paid fire employee. They had to manage the grant process. And when I came on in 2004, I was able to take that on for him. And we continue to this day. We're currently working a $96,000 grant that we were awarded last year to treat greenbelt properties within the township. However, it requires work. Daily, we're driving the porta potties out to locations. Daily, we're having to get the fire crews lined out, what areas to work. There's mapping. There's all sorts of logistical things that we have to provide to complete that mission. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to apply for the grants to get that going and continue. A little bit about the Redwood Complex. Just to kind of give you an update of where we were with that. Myself and another volunteer had heard the initial dispatch from Potter Valley. We listened to the radio traffic. We had an inkling that things were not going to go well with the wind being what it was. We came down the station, we staffed the station. We had heard radio traffic that the fire had jumped Highway 101, and we were appalled that had that happened so fast. It already burned through Redwood Valley. We attempted to notify the chief, however, phones were already dead at that point. Drove to his house, woke him up. This is what's going on. We need to go help evacuate Golden Rule. At that point, the fire was encroaching there. We self-dispatched, myself and another firefighter went to the Golden Rule. We assisted with evacuation and suppression and structure triage. And at that point, we also staffed up a fire engine and sent it to Redwood Valley to assist with that operation for the next week and a half. Again, I've been doing this 34 years. The only thing I've ever seen close to this was in Southern California. And I think this was a career fire. I do think that this could occur again. I think with the way the weather patterns have changed and fuels and whatnot, you know, we need to be prepared for all that.
Can you talk about trigger points, John?
So that night, well, I'll take that back. For the next week, we staffed the station 24/7. We had volunteer firefighters sleeping in the station. We answered hundreds of questions each day, day and night. Should we evacuate? Should we do this? Should we do that? What can we do? Well, being that the internet was down, and we didn't have landline telephone, and very little cell phone coverage, we listened to the radio traffic diligently to establish what we had in our mind trigger points. If the fire had encroached on to the city of Willits from the east, when it was in the Pine Mountain area, that would have been a trigger point. That trigger point means that is when we get the sheriff's department say, we need to start thinking about evacuation and come up with a plan. Doesn't mean we're going to initiate it. It's a trigger point to get us to go to the next step. Those trigger points are not just for evacuation. It goes through fire suppression and any other incident we may have. It's just something for us to kind of, okay, we need to move to the next step. So we definitely had ears on the incident. We had visual on the incident. And we were paying attention. Brooktrails was never a threat during that incident. I just want to make that known. Okay? And we were well aware of where the fire was going. We were in contact with our partners at CAL FIRE, the Sheriff's Department, and other agencies. So we had that pretty well covered.
How flexible do we need to be, John, with respect to prevailing winds, fire conditions, in terms of an evacuation point? Maybe you could talk about North Sherwood Road, meeting points, and what we call exit or egress.
So evacuation planning has been a hot topic. I know that in public forum I did come out and essentially state that the current evacuation routes that we had published are no longer suitable for evacuation. And the reason for that is, one, those properties are privately owned. Brooktrails has no jurisdiction over mitigating that issue. They don't even reside in Brooktrails. Every evacuation route essentially comes off into Little Lakes Fire District or is in a CAL FIRE's responsibility area. Two, they're not maintained. Relationship with property owners have kind of diminished to the effect that we need to revisit those issues. Do I feel comfortable taking this room full of people and pushing them down a road that is not maintained and has vegetation growing up both sides of it with potential of fire? No, I do not feel comfortable. And that is why I said what I said during Supervisor Krosky's ad hoc committee, correct? I did state that, and I stand by that to this day. However, I do support the fact that Sherwood Road is a viable option to the north. I did, after work last night, drive out to Sherwood Road and found a few properties that are right off of the Fort Bragg-Lakeville split that would potentially house hundreds of vehicles if we had to, vehicles and people. It's short grass, it's level property, has access, and if we could build a relationship with the property owner, potentially that's something that we can have in place. And it's not just that particular property, there's several others along the way, but it's one of those things where we're going to need to address those issues. It's not something that happens overnight. And I think one of the things with the Redwood fires that brought up a lot of emotion and a lot of what can we do right this second? Well, we're doing it right now. So some of the things that we as a department have done to better prepare ourselves for the next one is we now have satellite internet at the fire station. So as long as the satellite works, we have internet access. With that being said, we also have cell phone boosters that work off internet. So now we can communicate. We will and have and will continue to staff the station for as long as we need to based on trigger points, decisions made by the chief officers of the department, and provide that public information with whatever we can provide. We don't have all the answers, but I guarantee if we have it, we'll provide it. That's pretty much all I have. Again, somebody asked me the other day if you could say one word to what can we do, prepare. I know I'm reading off the notes not to, but I'm going to. Addressing, huge. Spring Creek, Silverdale, addresses on little green telephone boxes that are that big, not only do not meet code, but I do not see them in the middle of the night as I'm driving by at 20 miles an hour.
Yep.
Just saying. Addressing is the biggest thing for us. We've got to be able to find you to help you. Doesn't matter if it's a medical aid, a fire, any incident. That and the road associations need to band together and reduce some of the vegetative matter that lies along Blue Lakes Road. Timberline. I drove both those areas and it appears, and I don't know this to be true, but it appears that the vegetation was reduced from the upper story of the canopy and dropped alongside the road, left to die. That is not good. That attracts embers, and if you expect us to come rescue you and the sides of the road are on fire, I can't say that it's going to happen. You're not helping us help you. Yes?
Do you know if Silverdale can ever get access to CAL FIRE crews? I had suggested that as a possibility because we do have funds to support a crew. I used to work at Lake Mendocino and we'd have crews come every day and I'd work with the crews and that kind of thing for just abatement to widen the road. You know,
so I'll address that,
okay.
but that'd be a good one to put on the card.
And just
so thank you for bringing that up. It does bring up a good point that I meant to mention, and that is CAL FIRE crews, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, cannot abate private property unless there's certain conditions that are met.
Yeah. We're under a strong push from Sacramento to increase our vegetation management program. So if you have an area that would, we can do it in several ways. Fuel reduction, control burning, shaded fuel breaks. If those apply, I will leave my contact information here. It's best if there's a road association. If you have a road association, the whole association contact me and we can start the process. It is a slow process to conduct a BMP. There's CEQA requirements and that sort of thing. But I will look into it if you contact me, and I will leave my contact information. I would prefer, though, that groups band together so there's one point of contact for an area. Sir?
Can you explain what a shaded fuel break is?
Oh, certainly. Basically, you have a large forested area near a road, near a band of structures, that sort of thing. Fires crews come in. The one that comes to mind is a large one they did just a couple years ago over near Soda Bay. The fire crews spent many, many days there, but they left the larger trees and they took out all the, from the soda can down, those came out and everything was limbed up as high as they could reach, and the brush was removed, and in that case chipped, but it can be removed and burned. So basically, if the fire's in the canopy, it still potentially could go through there, but most of the time our fires burn in the ground litter and in the brush and the low-hanging limbs.
So thank you, Todd. So could we all please thank Jon Noyer, our Deputy Chief. Thank you, John. And maybe our entire panel here. We'll be moving on to the next panel that Keith Rutledge will be moderating. And just in that minute of changeover, please write down your questions because we want you to pin them up and we'll be collecting them. It's very, very important. But do stay in your seats. And Keith, if you could come up. And gentlemen, my deep appreciation to all three of you for coming out today. Thank you so much. Yes.